Welcome back to the Killah Cortez show. The following is an interview with Kylie Spence. Before we start, I have some Killah Cortez news. I just played my last show of 2022, and it was a great night of music. Special thanks to the homies Mexico City Heartbreak and Vernon West for sharing the stage, and to the Highland Park Bowl for hosting the event. I'd like to say a quick thank you to everyone who came out to a show this year, bought some merch, or sent me a message to show your support. I see you and I appreciate you. It was a year of growing and building, and I can't wait to see what 2023 holds. Thank you. Kylie Spence is an internationally touring singer-songwriter hailing from Bozeman, Montana. I've been working with Kylie since she was 15, and we've crafted dozens of songs together and have shared enough laughs for multiple lifetimes. One of my closest friends, I had the honor of backing her up on stage, playing guitar on her 2018 European tour, opening up for Lloyd. Still only at the age of 21, the sky is the limit for Kylie. You can find the show notes and a full transcription of this episode in the description below. You can also find a link to the Killah Cortez Discord where we chat all things KC. Sprinkled in between the segments of this episode are songs from my Songs for the Apocalypse playlist, 10 of which were chosen by Kylie. You can find the link for this playlist in the description below, and lastly, you can also find this episode on YouTube. However, it will be without the music between the segments. Without further ado, enjoy this interview with Kylie Spence. What's one thing people would be surprised to hear about you?
God. I have a short thumb.
Damn, you just ruined my short thumb question for later in this interview.
No way. Stop. Greg, I don't know. It's a hard question. I really like being involved in pretty much every single creative process that surrounds my music. From designing, directing, just everything visually. I'm like a huge sucker for. And I think if I wasn't in music, I would probably want to be, some sort of just creative around music, or just in general. I love all the visual stuff. So
yeah, I remember when we were working on, I think it was like Boomerang EP.
Yeah,
you were like making the covers like on your phone, right?
Yeah, I still do that. I mean,
really?
Not on my phone anymore. I've upgraded. I've gotten a little bit better, but yeah, I remember there was like this app, and I would, like you said, take the photo and like put like really cheesy font on it and then like text it around to all my homies and be like, this is so cool. So I've gotten a little bit more professional, I will say.
Yeah. Now you got CapCut. Now it's a little better.
Now I have like Adobe. I'm an Adobe girl now.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
That's a serious subscription. It's like 10 subscriptions.
Yeah. Well, it's nice because my mom, since my mom's a photographer, she has her Adobe account. And so with Adobe, you get like two, like you can sign into it from any device, and at the same time, two people can use it. So like she can use Adobe and I can also use Adobe on my computer. So like I just get to use her account. It's
works out
great. It works out perfect. Yeah.
What kind of music were you into growing up?
Well, it's funny because everyone just assumes that my parents were like really cool music people, which wasn't really the case. My like parents didn't, I don't know. My dad like played, I think I grew up a lot to like, early 2000s music, like boy bands and Coldplay and like All American Rejects and just like, I don't know, just that kind of like all pop rock scene. I loved Coldplay. I remember, I think it was Viva La Vida, and I heard that song and I didn't know the name of it because I just like heard it on the radio or something. And I remember I went to my dad and I was like, Dad, like, what's the song? And I was trying to like explain it to him, and he like had no idea what I was talking about. But I remember I got like a little iPod shuffle. It was like that little iPod clip. It was purple.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
And I would download. Yeah, and like for my birthday every year, my parents would get me iTunes gift cards, and so I would strategize like how much money I had so like I could buy these songs. And I remember I was going through the Coldplay discography, and I sampled Viva La Vida, and I was like, that's the song.
That's such a great album.
It is such a good album. I love Coldplay. I don't know, they've evolved in such an awesome way. And I remember when Ghost Stories came out, and everyone like, I think a lot of people had a lot of issues with that record because it was just so different from anything they've ever done. But I listened to it and I was like, this is some of their best work. Like that is just incredible. That
They
can
get
switch
a
like
lot of
that.
heat. They get a lot of heat,
Yeah.
but when I look at it, I mean, I give them a lot of credit because at least they're trying, and
Mhm.
they could totally have mailed it in and just done 20 records like Parachutes,
The same thing. Exactly.
and they've kept trying to change with the times, which personally I respect. I mean, that's
I do
freaking
too.
hard. I mean, they've had.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you. So I was around like when they first came out, and
Mhm.
at the time, I didn't think that they were going to be the band that stuck around for that long.
Yeah.
And they're still around. I mean, they're like the U2 of our modern time. I mean, I think
Yeah.
arguably, don't get mad at me, Gen X, but they're like bigger than U2
Oh,
in
I think
scope.
they're
Um,
I do too. They're amazing.
what's your like favorite guilty pleasure artist that you would never admit, but you'll admit here on the
Oh
show?
God. I mean, like I'm a proud Swiftie. Like I don't think Taylor is like
There's
anything
nothing
to be
guilty
like.
about
There's
that.
nothing guilty about that. Let me think. Um, oh God. There's an artist, his name's Claudecca, and I found him through an old friend in like 2019. And I am a huge fan of his music. I don't know. It's just I think he's a true artist.
Cool. What's a recommended first song to listen to?
Well, he's releasing a new album, I think this Friday or like next Friday. I really like the song Lemon Tree. His latest record from last year is really good. What's that song called? There's a song called Sisyphus. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah,
Love it.
You're like the fifth person in the past year to tell me Quadeca.
Really?
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Wait,
that means
so
I gotta check it
cool.
out. That means I gotta check it
No,
out.
you do, because when I first listened, it was kind of like a joke. Like he's a really fast rapper.
Yeah.
And so as a joke, I don't know. I mean, you know me pretty well. Like my parents would always joke, like, "Oh, Kylie should have been a rapper in like a second life," because I talk fast and I can rap pretty fast sometimes, which that's actually something people might be surprised to hear about me. But
yeah,
I did want to be a rapper for a while. No, like, do you remember when we like low key were considering like making like a Mac Miller type record and like me rapping.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm never gonna do that.
It's still there. It's still there if you want to revisit it.
For sure. But I think he's really cool. I actually saw him in an elevator once in LA, and I was too much of a chicken to say hi. Because I wasn't sure if it was him or not, but it was him. I found out later. But yeah, I don't know. His music just really resonates with me, and I listen to him, and I know that what he's doing is authentic to him. I feel like there's a lot of artists out there that I listen to, and there's almost like a blockage, and I'm like, oh, like that's really cool, but it doesn't really hit home to me, the listener, and I feel like the way you're singing it doesn't hit home to you either.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's a disconnect or something. So I admire him for that. Yeah.
That's cool. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, you should.
New Taylor Swift record. How you feeling?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought her up because obviously I could talk about Taylor Swift all day. I'm gonna be honest, like first listen, I guess okay, I was expecting more of like an alt rock indie record. Just based on like coming out of Folklore and Evermore, I was kind of anticipating like, okay, and then like also talking to other Swifties out there, we all like had our hunches and
on
we're
the
like,
Swiftie
oh my God.
Reddit.
Yeah, and like the Easter eggs were pointing to like an indie record, like indie alt rock. So I was expecting it to be a little more lo-fi. Not to say that it's not lo-fi, it's just like it's very like electric pop. Which is cool. Like it's a great record. There are some songs on there. I really like the bonus tracks, like the 3 a.m. version or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that song Karma, like when it came out, like ask any one of my homies, like I was like speaking the lyrics like I was in like a poetry stand-up thing. I was like, Karma is my boyfriend. Karma is a god. Like I was saying it religiously. So there's a couple like awesome tracks. Definitely not what I was expecting, but it's growing on me. And I feel like Taylor she holds so much power over anyone. Like she could put out a terrible record and I'd still listen to it. You know what I mean? Like it's just, she's just so good at what she does, and she has such an awesome fan base. And yeah, Yeah, so I personally I think my favorite record of hers is Folklore. I just at the time in my life when that came out, like it's like she read my mind. Like it's exactly what I needed to hear. And yeah, I love that album, but I like it a lot. It's really good. Not what I was expecting, but I listen to it. Like I'll get in the car and put it on. So that says something, you know? So
well, that's cool. I mean, that goes also to show like the artistry, like she's, maybe that's intentional to like lead you down this. And then she's like, we're going left here.
JK,
just
did you
kidding.
like it? What did you think?
I haven't heard it yet. So like I have like a very, with new music, I have a very touchy thing where like I like to wait for all opinions and hype to go away. I don't want to hear it.
Okay.
And I just like to hear, I like to hear with my own, just from my own devices.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna take a drive. I'm gonna take a drive at some point here, and I'm gonna listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, you have to drive to Montana. Listen to it.
Yeah, I know, right? That's. I listened to the whole Taylor catalog driving up to Montana.
Damn.
Yep. That was when like
crap.
I was like prepping for stuff we were gonna do, and I went from like album 1 all the way on. It was sick.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel like Taylor
I got pulled over to Taylor
Swift in that way. That's honestly something to be proud of. I'd be proud of that. Be like, yeah, I'm driving so aggressively because Miss Swift here is making me so angry.
So far, I'm still a big fan of Reputation. That's my fave.
I remember
but I love Folklore too.
When that came out. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Reputation, I just have fond memories.
Yes.
Like,
that was her standout album too. I feel like when that came out, everyone was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
But I respected that because it's the same thing with Coldplay when they put out Ghost Stories. Everyone was like, Chris Martin, what? Like they were like, what is happening?
Dude, I think we saw a car flip over to Reputation.
We did Reputation.
Oh my God.
we were driving. Oh my God. So Greg came out. I think it was 2018. Yeah. No, was it 2017? I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we were driving a canyon basically, where I live in Montana. There's like one road that connects where I went to high school.
One road with giant mountains on either side.
Yeah, it's actually one of the most dangerous roads in Montana, I think in the country.
And I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, it's okay. We don't tell people that. But we were driving this road to get to the studio. I think we were like mixing that day and listening to Reputation in my Jeep. And then this car like flipped over. It hit ice and it just flipped.
It was like swerving. It started swerving. And
oh my God. It was so scary.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I still remember that. Every time I drive by that spot, I always slow down a little bit just because I'm like, ooh.
It must have been like black ice or something. And there was like zero service.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no service in that canyon. So like I was freaking out. I was like, I think I was a little too freaked out. Like my adrenaline was kicking so hard. So I got out of my car and was like waving cars down, like, call the police, like, on the phone. And they like got out of the car fine. Like no one was injured terribly.
Yeah, we pulled over, right? I remember.
Yeah, we pulled over. You got the guy out of the car. Yeah, that was
crazy.
Crazy.
Oh man. So you've been able to do some amazing things in your short career. What have been some of the highlights?
I mean, obviously touring with you. That was, I mean, I don't know. I look back at that and not to say that I wasn't grateful for it then, because I remember feeling just like, oh my God, like what? This is freaking awesome. Like the fact that I get to do this with, you being one of my best friends. And then my mom was just like so much fun, but I look back and I'm like, I wish, a 17-year-old, because the day I landed in Germany, I was 17. I turned 17. Right. Yeah, it was my birthday. But I remember looking back now and I'm like, I wish I took it all in, but I wish I knew that the way that happened for me felt so seamless, because now I'm like, oh my God, like I would give an arm and a leg to have an opportunity like that come up again so effortlessly. So I think the tour, I mean, that was just, I really feel like I got to grow a lot on that. Mm-hmm. And just, I don't know. Being on stage in that way is such a high for me.
Yeah.
I really feel so authentic up there.
And it's such a different feeling. Mm-hmm. Like I've played a million small shows. I've played a million like shows to just know people.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like playing to a packed like 2,000 people. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's so gratifying. And just, I mean, yeah, because I do like, I play at the bars weekly here in Montana, which I love. I'm grateful for the opportunity, don't want to be doing that forever, but it's like I have those shows and then I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could be on a stage where people actually give a crap about me. You know what I mean? Because it's different. But yeah, I think the tour, that was such a highlight for me. I mean, honestly, like, not to hype you up, Greg, just because I'm talking to you, but like just working with you has been so nice because I feel like it's rare. Like, I don't know, I've met so many different people in the industry and, I've had ups and downs with, different people and like that can be hard. But the fact that you were one of the first people I met in the industry and like I still talk to you says something about you. And I think, I don't know, I have so many memories of like when I moved to Montana, like you would come up and we'd just like hunker down for a week and like work on music and like laugh a crap ton. And I feel like that process is just as much a reason why I do music. I love that process of getting to sit down with someone, and create, just have fun. It's just so much fun for me. So I think that, and then, yeah, I mean, I've when I went to Europe and then I went to Israel to tour, like that was just, got to see some really cool places that I probably wouldn't have gone to otherwise. So I'm grateful for that.
Same here. It was such an experience out there touring with you. Such an experience, like going out and riding with you and stuff. Like those are some of my fondest memories. So on the tour, you were opening up for Dennis Lloyd. And at the time, like he was, I think he was big in Europe, but he wasn't big out here yet. And I have my opinions on like what I gleaned from that whole situation, but I'm interested in hearing yours and like what you learned from him and like what you thought, what you were thinking after seeing that whole thing, right? Because that was pretty much your first time seeing a pro production up front.
Like thing, yeah. Yeah, I mean, totally. I think even just talking to Dennis, shout out to Dennis if you're listening. But like, I think the thing I took away from just getting to talk with him is that it is possible to do that independently, because at the time he was independent, and he was selling out 400 cap rooms, which, like you do that, I'm independent and it's like you do that and you're like, is it ever possible to do that? And I think he, showed me that it is possible. It is possible to have a fan base that's willing to commit to a night of live music for someone that they look up to. So yeah, I mean, he taught me that, and then just his whole team around him and his bandmates, and just his authenticity, and just getting to talk to him, and like just the way he, his stage presence, the way he communicates what his art means to him, just very authentic. So yeah,
definitely. I remember when we played Berlin, he had like all of Warner Brothers fly in.
Yeah,
I remember, like,
which I didn't know, I think, until after.
Right after the fact, we learned that, and then I remember
shit,
I remember hearing like from him or his team or whatever that they were like, nah, we didn't sign. It's like, why would we sign? Like we just sold out. Like
we just sold out a show.
We just sold out this show.
I have a song that's going crazy on Spotify. Like, why would I give that away?
Yep. And I think that's really valuable for like independent artists right now that are trying to do their thing. Like, if you can build the leverage, like you don't need a label, because essentially, like I know what he's done, and I know a lot of artists that have done the same thing, where they basically take parts of what a label does and they assemble their team to basically become their own label, their own team. Yeah. And I have mad respect for that.
Me too. It's hard. Like it's a tough industry to be in. And
it's tough, but amazing things can happen, and they've even happened. They've happened to you.
Yes,
and,
that's what it showed me. That whole tour showed me that. I mean, granted, I got really lucky. Like that opportunity came up for me, and I worked for it, but it kind of fell into my lap where I wasn't grinding. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like, oh my God. It happened, and it was amazing and brilliant. So that just shows that like, hey, stuff can happen. I think that's kind of what it showed me, which was super special. So
what is your songwriting process like these days?
Bro, it's all over the place. I mean, I definitely struggled for a while, because I remember when I first started discovering the world of songwriting, I would get home from school and just go into the garage and write like 2 to 3 songs a day. And granted, they were terrible, but like I was a machine. Like I was just writing so much. And I think over the years, obviously that's changed. But I think for a while, like I would kind of beat myself up because I wasn't writing a song a day. And so I was like, what's wrong with me? Like I'm a terrible songwriter, like, you know, what yada yada, just harping on myself. But I feel like the process for me now is really okay, this is gonna sound weird, but like I know when I need to write something and I know when I don't. And I have tried to sit down and force songs out when they're not supposed to happen, and it never ends up feeling truly authentic to me. So I just kind of have to respect that and just be like, hey, if, you know, I'll sit down and write a really good song when it needs to come out. And I feel like I do that for myself personally. Like it just, you know, it's like therapy sometimes. And some of the best songs I've written have been when I'm going through something where I almost need to hear myself sing it in order to know that like, okay, this is authentic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there are days when there are weeks when I write a lot, and then there are weeks where I'm like preoccupied with just life, and I'm like, I don't really have the mental capacity to like sit down and try to write a song right now. But I'd say I have a notes app. The notes app on my phone, like it's just filled with like one-liners and titles and like poetry, and I'm writing and thinking every day. But it's a matter of like when I actually sit down to form the song that, you know, that kind of ebbs and flows. So
that's cool. I like that. Yeah, I just did so what I do is I have voice memos, and like it actually happens a lot when I'm waiting for something, like I'm in line or something, and I'll just like sing an
happens
idea
when I'm driving. Yeah.
Or I'll
which
like
is terrible,
play a little guitar part. And I just I've had like a trillion of these ideas for about a year, and they've just been piling up in the notes. So I finally just organize it. I'm like, all right, we're going to write some of these. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I need to do that. I need to go back and because a lot of my ideas come to me when I'm driving. I don't know why. I'm always in the car driving, and I'm always like, Kylie, like, get off your phone. Like, this is not the time. So that's something I wish was different. But
I had one on the beach, and I'm like, you can faintly hear me singing, and all you just hear is like, just wind. I was like, damn, that one didn't work.
You're like, I missed that. That's so funny.
I was like, that was the best one. So I want to read a quote.
Yeah.
Epictetus says, the soul is like a bowl of water, and our impressions are like the ray of light falling upon the water. And when the water is troubled, it appears that the light itself is moved too, but it isn't. So when a person loses their composure, it isn't their skills and virtues that are troubled, but the spirit in which they exist. And when that spirit calms down, so do those things. And this quote made me think of Gazelle, which is your new song that just came out. Why don't you give our audience the backstory on Gazelle and a little bit of the creation of it?
Totally. So love that quote, by the way. So Gazelle is a really special song to me. I mean, long story short, I was about to turn 18. It was like, I was 17. I was driving home from school one day, and there was a song that came on, and it just, I don't know what it did, but it brought back all these memories from my childhood, in a really weird way. And I remember, just having all these like flashbacks come up over that next day and a half. And I was like, what the heck? And I started piecing things together, and it all made sense. Like it was like a puzzle piece where one piece was missing, and all those memories coming back to me was like that one piece, and everything just made sense. So much from my childhood made sense. So much of the reason, I would react a certain way to things made sense. So much of my own personal issues just made sense. And so I remember, I remembered a childhood trauma that I went through for 4 years. And it was something that I didn't remember before. So it was all of a sudden like, oh yeah, everything's fine, living my life, I'm in high school, to like, whoa, I went through a lot that I didn't remember going through as a child, and it makes sense. And so I've been in therapy since I was 10 for like other stuff, but I remember I told my parents about it and started going back to therapy. And at the time, the therapist that I was seeing, it was the first time where I actually like started doing real work. Like I actually faced the problem and the fears, and it was really scary. And for a while, I remember, you know, I would go into these sessions and we did hypnotherapy for a while, and just a lot more stuff was coming back to me than I wanted to. A lot more graphic detail and just stuff that's hard to think and talk about.
Yeah.
And I remember I think this was around, I was living in LA. It was 2019. And I've never felt so trapped in my own body and so anxious and just terrified, honestly, for no reason. I think it was literally just the fact that I was reliving what I went through as a kid, and feeling the feelings happen all over again. It was really traumatic, and scary. And basically I would be at dinner with my family, like super, you know, feeling super safe, you know, at dinner, and just start shaking and bawling. Like it was to the point where it was getting uncontrollable, and I didn't know when it was going to come up. And it was something where I was like, I don't even want to go out of my house because I don't know if I'm going to have a panic attack.
Yeah.
It was just very like it didn't make sense why it was happening. I didn't understand my triggers. You know, I was concerned and confused as to why it was happening when I felt the safest around my family. It was just like, you know, it was so much. It was just a lot. And so I talked to my therapist about it one day, and I was just like, you know, I don't know what to do. And just a lot was happening. And she basically told me about gazelles, and she told me a story, or not a story. It's just kind of what happens to gazelles. But when they're, you know, in the wild being hunted by like a cheetah, for example, obviously the cheetah is going to outrun them, and the gazelles will basically like go into freeze mode, which is what I was experiencing, where they kind of just like, they basically like faint, like they'll basically just like become frozen. And then the cheetah will, you know, take the gazelle away and keep hunting, but it won't kill the gazelle right then and there. It'll just take it back because it thinks it's dead because it's frozen. It's unconscious, basically. And then she told me that once the gazelle realizes that the cheetah is still out hunting, it'll come to, and it's able to live that way. And I just...
Oh, to run away.
Yeah, to run away and escape. And I thought it was really cool. I was like, damn, if a gazelle can do that, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And it gave me a different perspective on what I was internally like battling. And I mean, when I wrote the song, like I had the chorus kind of come up in my head prior to like sitting down in the session with you and finishing it. But you know, it was all about the trauma responses, like fight, flight. All I really heard growing up was, oh, like, do you fight or flight? And I was experiencing freeze, where I would just lock up, couldn't move, I can barely, like, when I go into freeze, like, I can barely make eye contact with people. I cannot speak for the life of me. Like, I cannot get words out. And it's a terrible feeling. And it's a feeling that a lot of people go through. And I feel like it's not talked about enough. You know, anxiety obviously is recognized, but just the feeling of like literally not being able to control is terrifying.
Yeah.
And so she told me about Gazelle, and then when we wrote it together, I remember, you know, just sharing with you and opening up about what I was going through and why, and we wrote the song pretty quickly. But yeah, that was in 2019, and we've had this song done for a long time, and it's for the reason I didn't put it out personally is because I feel like for myself, if I were to like release a song about like crippling anxiety and still be suffering with that, it just wouldn't make sense. So I feel like for myself, I needed to really do a lot of work on myself and overcome what I was feeling and dealing with in order to talk about it in a way that obviously like still hits home, but I'm not like terrified anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where Gazelle came from. And I don't know, Gazelles are pretty cool.
Yeah, I have vague memories of our session on it, but I do remember feeling like it was one of our most, maybe the most emotional session we've ever had, where I
Yeah.
remember like we were making art, but it was also kind of like we were just
It's therapy.
emoting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad that period is hopefully like over for you, or if not, at least it's mitigated.
Yeah, it is though. I think that's the beautiful thing. And I think that's why I subconsciously waited. I wasn't thinking about when am I going to put the song out. It just, where I'm at in my life now, it makes sense. And I did a lot of work on myself in the last year because I haven't released anything in a year, and
Yeah.
which is kind of weird as an artist, honestly. But I've done a lot of work on myself, a lot of growing and a lot of healing. With other people, with just really just looking at the hard facts. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to look in the mirror and realize that it's a choice. It really is a choice to decide how you're going to move on from this.
Yep.
Because for a while, and when I was stuck in that freeze mode every day, if someone were to come to me and be like, it's a choice, I would have been like, shut up. Like, you know what I mean? But it really is a choice. And it took me a while to realize that. And yeah, I don't know. I'm in a completely different place than I was 3 years ago when we wrote it. And I think the fact that the song I still want to release it, I think that to me is really important, just because it's been so long. So
To what you've been saying, you've been getting very spiritual over the past year or so, maybe 2
yes.
years. And I know you've been to a few retreats. Tell me about that experience and how has it been and
Yeah.
how has it benefited you?
It's been amazing. And something like, I just want to start off by saying something I never thought I would do, especially in terms of using plant medicine. I never, and I've never talked about this before publicly, but like, I never thought that would be a route I was going to go down, if that makes sense. So I did my first guided, spiritual journey last year, after I went on tour in California. And it was all of the things. It was terrifying, but also I got exactly what I needed to get out of that. And I feel like that's, doing plant medicine in a way that is designed to, it's not like I was just taking medicine to feel things. I was sitting down with intentions and, doing it guided. So doing it with someone who's able to push you,
Yeah.
I think is really important. And I would never, I would never recommend doing that in a way that's not for the right reasons. I think you really have to be doing it for the right reasons. Which I was. I was still going through a lot of this anxiety, and I had another, trauma happen, after I wrote Gazelle, which is so funny. And so it was just, I was just dealing with a lot. And yeah, the spiritual side of things have really helped me, and I feel like they've shifted my art a lot too. But yeah, I'm grateful for it. That's all I'll say. Like I really think doing that has shifted my mindset on everything.
Yeah.
I've become more mindful, more intentional. I speak better. I hold myself more authentically, and just, I don't know how to explain it. It really changed. It just changed my outlook on so many things. And it really did change my outlook on anxiety. And I think that's why, I've wanted to wait, just because I still had, and I still have anxiety. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like, oh, I don't have anxiety. Like I still have anxiety talking about this, my body tenses up a little bit, but before I would have just shut down. And I think that's why, I look back, especially in the last year when I started doing all of that, and I'm grateful for it. And it's just changed a lot for me in my life. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that needs to be said under anyone's breath, because I think it's going through a massive revolution in society.
It is.
Like
It
it's
totally
getting more
is.
widely accepted. The previous podcast, that band Midtown, the singer, like he goes on ayahuasca journeys, and I think he's taken.
I listened to that one.
Yeah. And the thing is like I've met so many people who've gone down a similar journey, and like even like all the research they're doing with the psilocybin and how basically it like recreates new pathways to treat anxiety.
Rewires your neuro pathways. It's genius. I mean, it literally, and there is some stigma around it still, which is a shame, but I agree. Like it's changing, and it's going into a direction where it's going to be more widely accessible. And
what's interesting, and I don't know if you've ever read any Tony Robbins, but he I think it's Awaken the Giant Within. He's got a whole thing about how to like rewire your brain. So his whole thing is like anything you do, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, it's like a super highway of neurons that you've connected.
Yes.
So anything you're good at, it's a super highway of neurons. And so his way of doing it is like, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, is you start doing like the good version of that to reprogram the neurons in your brain. But what the psilocybin does is it basically it makes it a little easier for you to do that, especially with anxiety, because that's kind of is what anxiety is it's your brain has created these pathways that causes stress inside your body.
Yes.
And it just keeps going to that pathway because it's like a trail and a hiking trail.
All it knows.
It's all it knows. So the psilocybin opens it up. So
yes.
I have a couple guests in the future that I think are going to speak a little more on that, but I think it's certainly interesting, and I think it's promising. I think our society is especially like everybody's stressed. Everybody needs some kind of break.
Everyone struggles. Yeah.
And it's such a huge problem for health. I don't think people realize how much the stress is killing them.
Yeah. I mean, I give so much of the reason why I remember the first time I journeyed with medicine with a shaman. I remember this is going to sound so stupid, but I remember like flying back home from Oregon where I did it, and I just felt so much lighter. I felt like I hadn't been able to access my inner child and like pure happiness, and just like I hadn't been able to access that because I was always on guard against something. And I remember like sitting on the airplane and like low key like humming and singing the song I was listening to, and just not giving a shit whether or not people like were like, what is she doing? Like I just didn't care. It just took the fear of judgment away. And I think too, I was able to really helped with my journey of self-love, which has always been so hard for everyone. It's such a tough thing. And that really, was, I think the first time I remember I did that. And I had love for myself in a way that I've never experienced before. And knowing that I'm the only person to give that to me, because expecting someone else to give you, the level I felt was so profound. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it just, I'm glad we're talking about that, because it's, I haven't talked about it, but it's a huge part of my life now. And I just, doing it, with the right intention for the right reasons it can be so healing.
So let's get to a very, very serious question here.
Okay. I feel like it's not going to be serious.
It's very serious. You underestimate this question. Are 66 Mustangs still the dream car?
Of course. Yeah, 100%. I told myself, it's so funny because I wanted one so badly when I was in high school.
Yeah, you've wanted that since you were like 15, right?
Since I was like 9.
Wow.
Like I remember my dream was to get like the little stuffed dominoes and like hang them around my rearview mirror. That was my dream, still is. But I told myself, I was convinced. I don't know why I had this hunch either, but I was convinced that for my 16th birthday, my parents were gonna get me like an old Mustang. I was just convinced. And I remember like walking outside that morning being like, there's no Mustang? Like what? And my dad was like, no, like you're gonna buy that one day because it's gonna mean so much more to you.
Yeah.
So I'm not there yet. I mean, I could. It's just like I don't have the means to right now. But that is still the dream. And I know one day that like I'm gonna get exactly the one I want, and it's gonna feel so much better than just, I'm gonna like know that I worked for it. I told myself as soon as I can afford to like have fun spending money from my music, that'll be the first big purchase I buy. So yes, very much so. 67 or 69. Yeah.
All right. Did I tell you I had a best friend that his dad got him a shell, like the shell of one, and then they built it for like, I think it was like 3 years they built this thing, right?
Damn. Yeah.
Building it. And then I think the aim was to have it ready for his 18th birthday. And had it ready. And they they took it out the lot and drove it down the street. And then the brakes went out and the car just crashed right into the wall.
Stop. That's so sad.
It's so messed up.
That's so sad, actually.
Yeah. I don't know what they did. But I remember that pretty vividly.
Damn.
When you think of the word successful, who's the first person who comes to mind and why?
2 people. Taylor Swift and my dad. I've always looked up to my dad. Like we just have I'm grateful that we're able to have the relationship we do. And don't get me wrong, like it's hard sometimes. Like family's always hard. It's always going to be hard. It's never going to be perfect. But I look up to my dad because of he just has so much worth ethic. And just, I don't know, he kind of like showed me that if you want things, you have to work for them. And for a long time, I just kind of thought like the law of attraction will just work. And I'm like, no, you actually have to like make moves in order for things to come to you in your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, but my dad and then Taylor Swift, she's so strategic. And I mean that in like the best way. Like I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, that's too strategic. Like I mean that in like a good way. Like the fact that she like hints at things like years before they come out, like I'm just like, I don't even have the brain capacity to like, I need a team to do that. Like it's just, she's so cool.
She's playing 4D chess.
Yeah. She's on a different level. And I look up to her because she's a really successful female who surrounds herself with really successful females. And that's really empowering. So yeah, I would say those 2 people come to mind off the top of my head.
That's cool. Yeah, your pops is definitely like he's the one who showed me the Stoics, which is why I read that quote. Yeah. And that was a pretty life-changing thing for me with kind of like what you were saying about like, law of attraction partially works, but you still need to be the fire that fuels that attraction. You can't just be like, come to me.
And be like, come to me. Yeah, exactly. But that's what I was doing for a while. I like didn't understand it. But yeah.
I'm waiting.
Yeah. I'm waiting. Like, when's all the success going to come into my life? No, sweetie. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did.
So you're one of the most introverted extroverts that I know. How do you balance those personality qualities in yourself? And what do you think pulls out the extrovert in you? And like, when do you think the introvert chimes in and says like, okay, it's my turn?
Well, I will say, like, I feel like a lot of that shifted since I started being more spiritual and journeying with medicine last year. Because now I feel like I think the reason I was an introverted extrovert previously was because like I would have anxiety in certain situations. So then I would just become introverted. And then if I was around the right people and I felt safe in my body, like I would just become an extrovert because you know me, I'm like goofy as heck. And
yeah,
like,
totally.
If I'm like, if I'm comfortable around you, like I'm just freaking weird. Like I am so weird. Like I'm just a weird person. And so I think now it's shifted because I just feel more comfortable, and I just feel more comfortable being like completely myself. And if people are like weirded out or offended by that, then I'm like, okay, they're not the right people for me.
Totally.
Who cares? Like it's not that deep. Move on from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
you're comfortable in your skin, and you don't care what
I don't care. I literally
people
don't
say.
care.
Whatever, who cares?
I don't give a crap anymore. And I think it's taken me a long time to get to that. But I don't. I'm just kind of like whatever. And I mean, there are days when I'm like, oh, like I feel more self-conscious, you know. And I don't think, you know, that's not to say that I'm like 100% in love with myself. But I think there's a difference between like, I wish I had this, and just there's a difference between that and having grace with yourself and being like, I love and accept who I am now.
Yeah.
And I love who I am around other people, but I can still work towards being the best version of myself, if that makes sense.
For sure. And I think there's a distinction there too, where it's like you can be 100% comfortable with yourself and not care what anyone thinks, but also be mindful of other people.
Of other people, exactly.
Which
I am. It's not to say that don't get the wrong idea. I'm not like out there like, just a complete like weirdo, but I kind of don't care if the wrong people will, I guess the wrong people for me will have, their opinions on things, which is fine. Everyone is, I mean, I have
basically
my
like anybody who's
things.
negative or anything like that. Yeah.
Just like, I don't want that. Like that's for someone else. Like,
yep.
I don't know.
Or they're also just they're on their own journey, and that's cool. Like our journeys aren't aligning right now.
100%.
And that's okay.
I've had, and I think that, I mean, what you just said right there, our journeys aren't aligning right now. That is so, like the way you said that was perfect, because I've had to remove people from my life because I'm like, hey, love and respect you. This isn't working right now. We're not in alignment, and that's okay. Like we don't have to be like, you know what I mean? So I think you said it perfectly.
What obsessions do you explore on the evenings or weekends?
Obsessions?
Yeah, like besides
what
music.
Does that mean?
Like what are like hobbies?
I was like, what?
Obsessions?
I was like, what does that mean? Oh my god.
This question's not aligning with me right now, so
I'm gonna have to remove myself from the situation. Anyways, I think, well, first of all, my life in the last couple of months has been I've basically been like hopping around place to place. I am doing some remodeling on my living place, but it's not done. So I've been staying with friends. I've been traveling a lot, and then just staying at my parents' house. So I've been living out of a suitcase for a while. So I think generally, if I'm in like a setting that's my setting and I have my stuff, I mean, I just love art. So, drawing, painting. I really want to get back into painting. Obviously music, but I think besides music, I really want to pick up reading again. I haven't been the best at that. I need to. I've been on my phone way too much.
TikTok, man.
TikTok, it's addicting.
Thing.
I really do. It's so bad. It's so good, but it's so bad. It's one of those things where like it's starting to become unhealthy, and I'm well aware of that. I just need to be like, Kylie, like just delete it. Like I spent a lot of time on there. I like cooking and baking. I don't know. I like hanging out with my friends too. Like, well, also like, finally being 21, I'm able to go out and not be so like paranoid of like, oh my God, my fake ID is not going to work. So yeah, it's been fun to just, meet new people. And I think this summer I really challenged myself. I went through a breakup like right when summer started, and I was so scared. I was like, oh my God.
It's an ideal time for a breakup though.
Well, I think I was more nervous because I wasn't, I didn't really make too much of an effort to like surround myself with other people.
Yeah.
And so I was very nervous about being like, oh my God, I'm not going to have a fun summer. But I told myself as soon as I did that, I was like, you know what? I am putting myself out there. I'm going to go to things. I'm going to try to meet new people. And I feel like so much of it is just faking it till you make it. Like, just, I don't know. It's not that deep. That's something I always come back to. I'm like, it's really not that deep,
I feel like that's what That's what your mom's really good at. Your mom is really good at just like she.
Well, mom's an airhead. She's just all over the place in the best way, you know?
Yeah, she's really extroverted.
Yeah.
I feel like that's if you need to learn anything from that, she's the one. You know?
They're my parents are complete opposites. Like my parents pretty well, so it's funny getting to see them together.
Do you think your artistic like your love for art and like painting and things, do you think that comes from like your mom's skills because she's like a photographer?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just growing up with an artist in the house, there was always art, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's cool too just to see her evolve and you know, she's changing like her medium styles right now, and it's like, you know, just getting to like watch her like almost rediscover like her passion. I don't know, it's really special. But yeah, I think growing up, like there was always art, and like we took art classes for a while. My mom and I took like a community college like drawing class, which was so fun because you know, it was like a bunch of, I was in high school at the time, and it was a bunch of like college kids, and then it was like my mom and I like in this class, which was fun. But yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I think one of my favorite covers still is the river cover with the horse.
She took it.
That's like the photo. Sickest cover. I mean, the other one's like, I like the garden cover a lot too. You took that one, right? But I like.
No, she took that. Well, we both like we lit a rose on fire, and so she took it. But
that one doesn't even look real. It looks like CGI.
Yeah,
it looks
crazy.
Like
art. Yeah, but she takes all of like the Gazelle cover art she photographed, and then I had to do like a bunch of editing to make it look, because it was just in a studio, so it, you know, the raw photo was like weird. But yeah, she know she's a huge part of my whole creative process, especially being independent. I'm like, hey mom, like, I mean, the We're Still Dancing music video, like we literally like filmed that in a garage. And granted, it's not the best thing ever, but it's pretty good considering that like she just did it on a DSLR and I edited it on Final Cut Pro. Like it's cool, you know?
Yeah, that's right. You've edited a bunch of your own videos too.
I love that though, like so much. For the Gazelle video, I co-directed it with Drew, who did the Highway 83 music video. Shout out Drew. But that, I mean, yeah, I love being a part of all of that. It's so soul feeding to me. Like it literally makes me so happy.
So Gazelle has a video. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, so the Gazelle music video, I mean, because we've had this song done for quite some time, and I've always had this idea in my head. There's a couple shots particularly where I was like, I know this has to be in the video. So sat down with Drew and was like, can we make this happen? And we did. And so there's a couple shots of me in a coffin, like being buried alive.
Scary.
Yeah. And then there's a couple shots of me in a pond and Greg. So, you know, Montana, like the weather is just so bipolar here. So I think we filmed it October 17th. And granted, it was like sunny and beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was cold. Like I think it got down to like 39 degrees at night.
Oh no. You got in that water.
In a dress in the water, like freezing my butt off. I think I almost got hypothermia. But I was like, all for the footage. I think the cool thing is I really, you know, Drew is so kind enough to like let me be a part of the process in a, you know, from a directing way, if that makes sense. Just because I've had all these ideas just in the back of my head for so long. So to be able to like, you know, collaborate with someone who's open to like sharing that space was just really special. It just, I don't know, it gave me a more like hands-on approach, and I'm excited for this video. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
So we worked on a lot of music together.
Yes.
Are there any Easter eggs you'd like to tell the listeners about?
So many. Oh my God. Well, first of all, like for Gazelle, I've kind of been hinting at it over the last 2 years. I had a little toy Gazelle figurine, and I've like had it in the back of like a bunch of Instagram photos, and it was even in the Highway 83 music video. So I feel like a little bit of a Taylor Swift girl doing that, but obviously not as genius as her. But yeah, I think that, and then I mean there are so many songs where There's so many songs where like,
Oh man.
I mean, oh my
Can
God.
we finally talk about Garden? Can we unlift that one?
You talk about Garden because I was going to talk about Give Me a Reason.
I won't talk about Garden. That's your story to tell.
Well, Garden, are you talking about like the every flower part?
Hey, we don't have to talk about it.
No, wait, I actually want to know. Tell me. Wait,
yeah,
were you talking about that part?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically like so the lyric originally was every fucking flower instead of every perfect flower. And I remember Greg was like, Kylie, come on, like just do it. And I was like, no, like my dad's gonna kill me if I swear. Cause I think I was 17 or something and just a different person then. And so we we kept the background vocal as every fucking flower, but then the main vocal was every perfect flower. And so we were when I was in Israel, opening for Dennis, we were doing like our stage check or whatever. And they, I was running tracks. And so the girl who was running my tracks, was playing the BG vocals, the background vocals. And all you hear this throughout the whole entire like arena, every fucking flower. And my dad, he was there. He looks at me. He's like, "What did you say?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't even know how to tell you right now." So that was something funny.
I remember that the same exact thing happened in what was it? It was like Frankfurt. And I remember we played the track back, and your mom was just having a good time in the back, and then that came up, and she looked straight at you, and she was like, "No."
Yeah, I was just a baby back then. I think it's different now.
Sorry, fam. We were giving Kylie street cred.
Yeah, exactly. But the other one I can think of is, I think I already said the song name, so I guess like, Give Me a Reason. But we might have used some.
Give Me a Reason?
Do you remember this one?
What did we do for Give Me a Reason?
Oh my God, we did so much. Bro, do you remember?
I don't think so. I mean, we used a bunch of sounds, right?
We used some audio recordings from certain people and just put some really heavy effects on there. And then yeah, I don't really know how much else I can say without saying too much. So I'll leave it at that.
I like it. I like the Easter eggs. Okay, I got a few more questions left for you. What topic would you speak about if you were asked to give a TED Talk on something outside of your main area of expertise?
Taylor Swift. No.
This is my TED Talk on Taylor Swift.
Honestly, I think maybe the spiritual side of things and like plant medicine, and I just I'm passionate about it.
Are you still talking to that psychic?
Which one?
The phone psychic?
Oh yeah, her and I are friends. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, she's awesome. I mean, I think the cool thing is there are really cool people in my life for that purpose, and I get to be friends with them.
Yeah. That's
and
cool.
I think more than anything that means more, you know what I mean? To not just have someone like, oh yeah, I'm like, using, like my therapist, like we went to Hawaii together. Like she's one of my like closest friends.
Aww.
And I love the fact that I get to have those relationships. So yeah, I think just talking about, that.
Cool.
I think that would be something I could probably do pretty well. But
I like that.
Yeah.
So what's next for Kylie Spence?
Well, I'm kind of in the process of trying to finish up a project. So maybe like an EP, maybe, I don't know. But I think hopefully getting that out there. And then I really feel internally like I'm sure you felt this. Like I feel like every artist goes through this, but I feel like for the first time, honestly, in my career, the vision that I have from my music is shifting so much. And obviously, it's shifted in the past 5 years since I've been putting stuff out, but like I've never felt like so much more of like a drive to really experiment more with production specifically. So I really want to, just collaborate with more people and see what that looks like. I'm going to Nashville next week, just to, try to network with some people and see if I like it in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a Montana, like I'm a sucker for Montana, but I think at some point, I don't know, maybe splitting my time between two places. But yeah, I think for me in the next year, I really want to, it'd be a dream to tour again. It'd be amazing to just keep collaborating with people, keep building my team, just, just enjoying the ride, I think.
Very cool. Where can people find you, Kylie?
Everywhere. You can find me Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, it's all Kylie Spence. So hopefully it'll pop up. Hopefully you'll click on me and put the voice to the face, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Well, Kylie, thank you so much for coming on. You're one of my dearest friends, and I'm so glad to have this conversation with you and, be able to hopefully show a different side of you, a side that I get to see when we're writing or just hanging. And anyways, I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, Greg, if anyone's listening, Greg is a real one. And yeah, I'm just grateful that we, have the relationship we do. And thank you for taking the time to ask me questions.
Heck yeah. All right, cool. We'll catch you.
Bye.
Once again, thank you to Kylie Spence for coming on the show. Everyone go stream Gazelle. It's one of my favorite songs that Kylie and I have crafted together. You can find other episodes of The Killah Cortez Show, listen to my music, or show your support by buying some merch over at killahcortez.com, or you can find the links to all that in the description below. You can also show support for the show by giving us 5 stars on Spotify or a like and or comment on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and until next time, adios.